Hey, listen, if we get I'm fine with the America First Fund if it's not funded in a horrible way like tariffs or something. The president also previously said revenue earned from tariffs on imports could form the basis for our wealth. I know it! You know, Trump will probably make it fucking suck at first. But when we get AOC 2028, she will make it good. If you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description. Our Lord and Savior, social democratic Lord and Savior, ultimate sock dem warrior, ultimate market socialist here, Donald J. Trump, trying to make his social wealth fund or sovereign wealth fund. That is interesting. I mean, he said he was going to look into it on the campaign trail. Like he said, I think in the campaign trail, he said he might fucking name it something like America First Fund. But hey, listen, if we get I'm fine with the America First Fund if it's not funded in a horrible way like tariffs or something. Donald Trump has signed an executive order directing the U.S. Treasury and Commerce Departments to create a sovereign wealth fund. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, and the nominee for Commerce Secretary will lead the effort. We have tremendous potential, Trump said while signing the order from the Oval Office on Monday. I think in a short period of time, we'll have one of the biggest funds. What is a sovereign wealth fund? What does it do? Sovereign wealth funds are investment vehicles owned by countries. Most act as an investment account or as a development tool, or a combination of the two. They are designed to be a nest egg, allowing current money to be deployed in ways that benefit future generations. Unlike pension funds where people withdraw money for their own spending needs, sovereign wealth funds are supposed to invest for the collective good of the nation. But sovereign wealth funds can also often invest in financial products, buying stakes in companies, which can provide financial benefits well into the future and fund government budgets or social programs. There are 90 such funds across the world, managing over $8 trillion in assets, according to the International Forum of Sovereign Wealth Funds. Well-known examples include Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the Chinese Investment Corporation, and Norway's Government Pension Fund. Alaska has one as well, kind of. That's going to be painful, like one of the best new things the government is a sovereign wealth fund, and it is Trump who does it. I mean, you know, I meme about sovereign wealth funds being great because I talked to Econoboy, and Econoboy really likes them. There are ways that a sovereign wealth can be implemented where it's done poorly, okay? I'm not convinced that, like, well, I think Trump has the capacity to screw it up. You know, if, for example, I mean, like we memed about this on fucking Gibbs's panel when we had our like ERS debate, like would we sit like a sovereign wealth fund, we're talking about a UBI, but a sovereign wealth fund like funded by tariffs or something. There are ways to mess it up. How is a wealth fund funded? Typically, some or all of a country's budget surplus is passed through SWF, which it can then use for new investments. Many funds have been set up by countries with strong commodity export industries, and proceeds from oil, natural gas, and metals and minerals sales by state-owned companies are often behind SWFs. About 60% of the funds are funded by revenue from natural resources, per the International Foundation. Blah 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 blah. Trump offered little in the way of detail on Monday how the U.S. fund would operate or how it would be financed. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told reporters the plan was to monetize assets currently owned by the U.S. government for the American people. The president also previously said revenue earned from tariffs on imports could form the basis for our wealth. I know it! I knew it! Fuck. Oh. Whatever. Okay. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, the best way. I mean, people always make the all these countries that use their government budget surplus to fund the sovereign wealth fund. How are we going to fund one? every country, every state has some amount of what are called like resource rents, okay? Basically, a rent in this case is kind of an unearned economic payment, right? The people who extract resources like oil, like minerals, aren't really adding any value beyond extraction, right? All they're doing is extracting the resource, which is valuable because it has certain uses. They didn't make the resources. The resources have been there for millions of years in most cases, right? These are like unearned payments, and it's not distortionary to tax them away, basically. To tax them or to even, do it like Norway does. Norway just owns an oil company directly, and its profits go to the sovereign wealth fund. I think Norway does also have private oil companies that they tax, but, there are a few different ways that we could get resource rents, and there are very non-distortionary way to collect revenue. And there are things that, because they're like, again, unearned, things that arguably should be socialized anyway. Like this just is a thing that we should be socializing. Like, because no one made these resources. Tariffs are not a good way to do this. Beyond, first of all, there are a lot of issues with tariffs. Everyone knows. I talk about them a lot. Okay. They're just way more distortionary than taxing resource rents, because like consumers want to, buy whatever good that they're importing at that price for whatever reason. There's no need to distort that consumer choice. There aren't really economic rents collected there. And like other countries retaliate. Tariffs act like they are a bad tax. Like they're regressive. They are distortionary, like it is mentioned. But what makes tariffs there are other like distortionary taxes that are also regressive. Okay. They're not as bad as tariffs, because tariffs provoke other countries to retaliate on you. They provoke trade wars. That's not a good thing. We don't want that. Why hasn't the U.S. had a wealth fund before, and why now? Sovereign wealth funds generally exist in countries that either have large foreign exchange reserves, such as China, or revenue from the sale of oil or other commodities like Norway and Saudi Arabia. The U.S., however, has consistently run budget deficits in recent years. There are in fact some U.S. states that do have smaller wealth funds, generally funded by commodities or land. The largest is the Alaska Permanent Fund, started in 1976, which currently manages about $82 billion. But the size of American private investment sector on Wall Street and beyond is such that various investment managers and private equity firms manage large pools of capital. That reduces both the need and availability of capital for a sovereign wealth fund to exist, absent political will. Bessent said the U.S. sovereign wealth fund would be set up in the next 12 months. Well, on the election campaign trail in September, Trump proposed setting up a fund which would finance great national endeavors, including infrastructure products such as highways and airports, manufacturing, and medical research. Trump also suggested, without providing specifics, that the fund could be used to keep TikTok operating in the U.S. TikTok is currently operating due to an extension Trump granted, prolonging the deadline for for sale or shutdown. Sorry. How big could America's sovereign wealth fund be? Trump did not give an initial size or target amount for the sovereign wealth fund. However, when talking about the subject in December, he said an American sovereign wealth fund should approach or exceed $2 trillion. Now let's going to get to that in his term at least, but currently the largest such fund is Norway's government pension fund with a global Norway's government pension fund global with 1.74 trillion in assets, followed by China's investment corporation with 1.33 trillion assets, according to the Sovereign Wealth Fund Institute, a data provider. Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Singapore are among countries with prominent sovereign wealth funds with between 801 billion to 1.06 trillion in assets, the institute said. I mean, there are it could actually be a net benefit, okay? Even if we sell fucking sovereign wealth fund that's small in size and fucking funded by tariffs, just because we have it then, and we're a lot less likely to get rid of it, and like it's a thing that we already have, and like we can just reform it to make it better. Okay, we could have like the Democratic president comes in and actually reforms the sovereign wealth fund to be fucking fire. I think that like there are some people who are like, there's a few like wonks that propose, we should have a UBI of like $1 a month, of like $50 a year or something, just so people are like in the system and like they see how it works, and like later like maybe we can reform it and like actually like increase the size of it, okay? Or like maybe we make it like $50 a month, and basically almost everyone will like sign on to it. We have like an opt-in thing, so we have everyone in the database, right? Listen, I'm hopeful, okay? maybe this could be the same thing, okay? Maybe it'll suck at first, but in the long run, okay, when we get the Hunter Biden presidency, when we get the AOC, okay, if we have our sovereign wealth fund and AOC runs for president, that could actually be, we could have a banging sovereign wealth fund.
Sovereign wealth funds, or social wealth funds, are investment funds owned and operated by the state government. Now, why would a state operate a sovereign wealth fund in the first place? What utility could this provide to the people and the government, and how exactly does this relate to socialism? Well, I'm going to talk about that and a whole lot more as I walk you through all the research I did on social wealth funds over the last few months. To begin, at the most fundamental level, an investment fund in this context is a pool of different assets owned and managed by an entity. These assets could be any number of things, from stocks to bonds to real estate. In my What is the Stock Market video, I talk about how, in this sense, social wealth funds are actually quite common in many parts of most every nation. If a social wealth fund is just a state-managed investment fund, then things like endowment funds for universities or pension funds for cities are subnational social wealth funds. Now, why would a state want to operate an investment fund? Well, for a lot of reasons, really. If we think basically about money management and finance, it's not really that good to have a bunch of cash just lying around all the time. For instance, say after all your costs at the end of the month, you have $1,000 you can save. It probably doesn't make as much sense to just leave that cash sitting in your checking account, because there's probably a savings account that can earn 0.5% or 1% interest. And $1,000 plus 0.5% or 1% is better than just $1,000 by itself. At least if you think more money is better than less money. In the same vein, if the government as a whole or a government agency has a surplus of cash or a regular revenue stream, it makes more sense to take this extra cash and invest it into something that can make a rate of return more than just leaving that cash sitting in a government treasury. Because at least in economics, once again, mo money does not indeed mean mo problems. Now, this brings me to an important question to address in this video. Isn't this risky? Would we really want the government to invest a bunch of money into the stock market, bond market, and assorted other markets with the aim of earning money on the taxes we already pay them, or a return on the money they already get from state agencies, state entities, and or other revenue sources? Well, yes and no. Without going into it too much, all investing is risky to some extent, but if you're smart about it, you can substantially reduce an investment portfolio's exposure to risk even when combining highly risky assets. For instance, some college endowment funds invest in venture capital, which is considered one of the riskiest classes of assets. So let's say, for example, a university has a $10 billion endowment. They might use 4% of this endowment a year to fund regular operations, meaning this is money the university is absolutely counting on every year to meet their funding obligations. The university needs this $400 million a year, so why would they invest in such a risky thing like venture capital? Well, it's because venture capital doesn't always move up or down in the same direction, the same speed, or the same variance as something like bonds or stocks, which make up the bulk of the average university endowment portfolio. And skipping over a bunch of boring finance talk, it's possible to construct a portfolio of assets where each individual asset is riskier than the market average, but when combining these assets, we actually end up with a lower risk with a higher return. Look up.
Why not issue some money to pay off the debt? Because we can have a sovereign wealth fund, and it can be cool. Okay, it'll be cool and awesome, and we can fund it with resource rents, which should be socialized anyway. Okay. I mean, I guess I just listen. Okay. Again, this is what's gonna happen. You guys will see. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund. Okay. And, Trump will probably make it fucking suck at first. But when we get AOC 2028, she will make it good and also come up with a comprehensive plan to fix the budget deficit, okay? And then we'll have a sovereign wealth fund and a budget surplus. This is my prediction. All my money is on this happening. Although also, it's fun. This isn't a point that Econo Boy made to me, actually. When I was I talked to him about this once. If the sovereign wealth fund invests some of its money in U.S. treasuries, if anything, you're reducing the risk of the deficit. You're a creditor to yourself, right? The U.S. sovereign wealth fund owns U.S. debt. Like that's less risky than fucking China owning the debt, right? Like,
Up portfolio optimization if you want to learn more about this concept outside the context of this video. This is the foundational governing philosophy to most investment funds, and that's why if a fund is managed well, there's not a lot of reason to be overly worried about the riskiness of the fund's investment assets themselves. They might have a bad year here and there, but in the long run, the fund will probably return more than it loses. At least it'll return more than just leaving your cash in your bank account. However, the phrase "if the fund is managed well" is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, and understanding this, another question becomes important to answer. Should we really trust the government to manage investments? And additionally, is any risk at all acceptable when talking about tax money or revenue from government operations? To answer this question, I'll reiterate one point and make another. One, more money is better than less money. So if it's the case that we can obtain a reliable return on the money the government holds in its treasury, then it makes sense to go ahead and invest it. After all, every dollar of money the government earns from an investment fund could be a dollar that the government doesn't need to collect in the form of taxation, which I'm sure at times we can all appreciate. Secondly, to the question of should we trust the government to manage investment funds, let's talk about the penultimate example of government social wealth funds, Norway. Norway is certainly not the only country which manages a social wealth fund, but it's certainly the most popular example.
You can fucking listen. Trump will have a social wealth fund and won't add any debt, okay? Because we'll finance it all by tariffs. What are you not getting, Bob Marley? You just finance it all via tariff revenue. This is what he's telling me. You could fucking socialize resource rents, okay? Okay, we can just socialize the fucking resource rents. You don't have to add to the debt. You don't have to borrow, okay?
And probably for good reason. It's absolutely gigantic. Despite being over 250 times smaller than China in terms of population, the Norwegians have a larger social wealth fund. So in order to determine whether or not the government can responsibly and sustainably manage such a fund or funds, we will look at the Norwegian social wealth fund and answer a few basic questions. What is the fund's origin? How is it managed? And how is it invested? To begin, Norway technically has three social...
Okay. Don't need to watch all this. It's just a good video. Also, you fail to consider, Bob Marley, how will we ever build socialism without without the sovereign wealth fund? This is what you fail to consider. This is what you fail to consider. Opportunity cost of putting that revenue into wealth fund is paying off the debt. I mean, that's true. I guess I was just I think there is a case to be made. I don't know if specifically Trump is going to use the money well. So there definitely could be, there's definitely a world in which it's preferable just to take that money and pay off the debt with it, right? I guess I'm just more, I was going to say, I guess I do think now I'm conflicted. Because I do think the government debt is starting to become an issue. So maybe it'd be good to socialize resource rents to pay off the interest that we pay on the debt. But I mean, listen, we socialize the resource rents, we make the sovereign wealth fund, and we make the sovereign wealth fund, give out payments to people, and we can start cutting some of the income security programs, and problem solved. Okay, we fixed it. We fixed it. I do think I made this point earlier. I do think there is a there's a case to be made, implementing a sovereign wealth fund, or even like I said earlier, like a UBI of fucking $10 a month, just to have it on the books, just to have the system set up. Because it's hard to get rid of once it's already there, even if it is small or anything. By Trump being coined as sovereign wealth fund is dude. It probably fucking will. It's probably gonna. Elon Musk is probably gonna be the fucking manager. We're probably gonna have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy or Vivek's. Probably fully kicked out now. I think he's gone. So. He'll be governor of Ohio. Yeah, we'll have Elon Musk telling it to buy Tesla stock and telling it to buy SpaceX. Paying off debt will also increase private investment due to crowding in. That's true, I guess, yeah. If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.